Oftentimes, when people look at South Asia as a region, it means India or maybe Pakistan. Bangladesh basically doesn't exist within a South Asia art historical canon. And if you're looking at the history of modern art in Bangladesh, these artists were once East Pakistani. So if you are going to look at the history of modern Bangladeshi art, you must look at Pakistan. And after Bangladesh became a country, these East Pakistani artists were no longer written within the canon from a Pakistani perspective. You can't look at the history of modern art in South Asia or Bangladesh, East Pakistan, West Pakistan, without looking at the cross-regional exchange with France, with London, or in the case of Bangladesh, with Japan. So I think that, you have to look where other people are looking. And the way that the canon is written, countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, those are not part of the narrative at the moment, and there's much research to be done on that front. I would say two that I would hit upon was something that Salima Hashmi refers to as the Lahore effect. In the 1960s, many East Pakistani artists went to Lahore and had very formative moments there. One of these artists being Novera Ahmed. There's very little research done on this period, also because of the political tensions between Pakistan and Bangladesh. The other one would be from an institutional perspective. The 1980s were an extremely rich period in South Asia. Bangladesh started the Asian Art Biennale, which has completed its 16th, going into its 17th edition, which began in 1981. And they drew together artists from across South Asia and East Asia as well. And interestingly enough, unlike the Triennale in India, which rarely included Pakistan as a presence, the Asian Art Biennale consistently includes Pakistan as a present country and has even had Pakistani jurors. At the same time, in 1987 in Lahore, you have a biennial that has artists from Pakistan, India, Iran, Bangladesh, and they're kind of looking at how Islam is uniting these countries and their artistic practices. There were two photography biennials in Pakistan in the 1980s, and we also have the triennial that was existing. This was an extremely rich period for international exchange. Two artists that were essential into formulating the education systems in Bangladesh were Zainul Abidin and Rashid Chowdhury. Zainul Abidin also helped set up art schools in Pakistan as well, but both he and Rashid Chowdhury were very inspired by folk art. So actually, Zainul Abidin also founded a folk art museum in addition to founding the Faculty of Fine Arts, University of Dhaka. What's interesting about Bangladesh is that a lot of artists, rather than going to the West to train, went to Japan. So one artist named Mohammed Kibriya, who's one of the fathers of modern art in Bangladesh, he studied in Japan in 1959, and many other Bangladeshi artists followed in that footstep. I think if you look at the history of art production in South Asia, a lot of it began actually in Bengal. There was a Bengal Renaissance. Rabindranath Tagore started Shantiniketan, and you had scholars from Argentina, from Japan. It was really a cosmopolitan center. And when you look at a word like international, these nations are changing all of the time. There's a 5,000-year-old culture here. You can't really divide it in terms of nations. You can't look at India without Bangladesh. You can't look at Bangladesh without actually, you have to look east because it also has a Buddhist past. I think the other thing is that one can't get, while globalism really flattens everything out, there is a problem of flattening at the moment. You can't be too caught up within regional dialogues as well. I think a great example is Sri Lanka. If you look at Sri Lanka from the perspective of South Asia, it kind of looks like a small brother in the South. But if you look in terms of the Indian Ocean belt, it's the most important trading point between Africa and Australia. And there are now new initiatives popping up in Mauritius. Mauritius is very tied to South Asia, but might not come up in that dialogue. Or Libya, they invited many, because of the politics, many Muslims from Bangladesh went to Libya, and they're now entering into Italy. There's other perspectives to look at that aren't national. Unfortunately, it seems that this has been the case. India is a economic superpower. 2017 is a year of friendship between India and the UK. There's pictures of David Cameron and Modi shaking hands, and their British Council has a large amount of funds that are going to supporting these sorts of exchanges. Bangladesh does not have this sort of policy. While the government does support international presentations of Bangladeshi art, especially in the 1980s, there were touring shows to China, there were touring shows to Moscow. It was really quite impressive. But this was a government-initiated thing, but not with the kind of money that you see in China or India.